Hi there, and welcome back to rLounge. It's pretty simple. People project onto others because they can't be honest with themselves about the things they are doing or dealing with due to the shame or guilt. It's easier to look down on others and scold others for a trait or action than it is to do so to yourself. Today, we see just how ugly these people are on the inside. Our first mother-in-law might be taking her job far too seriously. Mother-in-law thinks I'm fat. Trigger warning for food body shaming. Let me start off by stating this. Mother-in-law is a medical professional specializing in eating disorder treatment. When I first met mother-in-law, I was a tiny size 2 teenager. A decade later, thanks to no longer having the metabolism of a 19-year-old, a global pandemic, and carbs as comfort food, and a medication change, I'm now a size 8. Whatever, I don't care about the number on the scale. My husband still thinks I'm hot. My health is great, and my doctor is happier with my weight now. Mother-in-law disagrees. For years, she's made comments here and there, mostly insisting that I share entrees with her when we go out to eat, because women always eat small portions, and or stating that it looks like I've been eating a mostly meat and potatoes diet. I brush them off because I don't feel like opening that can of worms. This past weekend, they stayed with us. We had my family over for dinner one night and ate outdoors because it was 70 degrees, and I wore a t-shirt because 70 degrees. Weirdly, mother-in-law insisted on both the patio heater being turned on and wore a down coat, claiming to be cold. She kept pointing out how odd it was that I was the only woman in a t-shirt. The others had super lightweight cardigans, toppers on, mostly for mosquitoes. And I responded that it was a warm evening for our area. She said that no, it's because the others are far thinner than I was. I asked her what she meant by that, and she said that I had much more insulation to keep me warm. A few minutes later, mother-in-law started to clear the plates, despite others still finishing their dinners, and me finally getting to my second burger. I pointed out that people were still eating, and she insisted that everyone was basically done. I literally pointed to the single bite I had taken out of my burger and clearly said, "No, I'd like to finish first." She then reached for my plate and said, "No, you're done." And I ended up picking up my plate and moving to another seat to avoid confrontation. The next day, the four of us went out to eat, picked up dishes to share, 2 small entrees and 2 appetizers total, and mother-in-law insisted on being the one to go up and order. I accidentally followed her up to the counter in search of water, and I overheard her saying to the waitress, "This is too much food, right? Tell me we shouldn't order this much food." And the waitress assured her that it was definitely on the small side of an order for 4 people. Finally, mother-in-law agreed, but only after the waitress promised they had to-go boxes for leftovers. I've been stewing on this since they left. I'm happy with my body, my doctor says I'm healthy, but this crap is so demoralizing, especially since, given her career, she should know better. It seems like she has her own issues with food, but I don't have the energy to dive into that. My husband will be calling her to have a conversation about not bringing this crap up in the future and laying out some very clear boundaries. This is infuriating, y'all. Edit. Who the heck reported me to Reddit's crisis line? I'm glad you're concerned, but not sure how that was your takeaway from this. We've got our first opinion from a child of the Wraith. Let me start off by saying this. Mother-in-law is a medical professional specializing in eating disorder treatment. Clearly, she is not. Substantial Gain 903 says, "And I thought my mother-in-law was a weight-shaming witch. Geez, girl, I don't know how you are dealing with her at all. I would have gone no contact with her already." Mine started our relationship off by suggesting that the wedding dress style I was leaning towards would make my butt look bigger than it already is. And it's gone from there. Joke's on her. My husband loves my body, and since the pandemic and my finally being perimenopause, I've actually lost weight while she's gained. You need to stand up to this woman and tell her to back off. Riley Girl 1961 says, "Regardless of mother-in-law's credentials, she needs a family intervention about her behavior. You're all adults, but mother-in-law is treating you like a child or someone incapable of making your own decisions. Make it clear that while you respect her concerns, you're not her patient, nor have you requested her assistance or advice on your eating habits, diet, or lifestyle. Set clear boundaries and let her know that if she continues to overstep these boundaries, she will no longer be invited to join your family at events which include food. Period." Wonderful Surprise 90 chimes in, "She is projecting on you because she has an issue. Order for yourself, keep a hand on your plate, and ignore her. I can only dream of being a size 8 again." Glittering Community 1 says, "Oh my god, you are so much more restrained than I think I could have been. The minute she tried to take my plate, especially when I'm enjoying a burger, one of my favorite foods, one made exactly how I like it, and I would have said, 'Wait, I haven't licked the plate yet.' I think your mother-in-law has some serious issues, not only with her obsession with what others are eating, but I think she has some jealousy issues on you. She's exhausting to imagine being around, not to mention extremely obnoxious." She's all I ever hoped adds, is there a health board to report her to? She could be causing some serious damage to people. Not even joking. Here for T says, yes, at a size 8 you are likely still well below not only a risk range, but probably also below the normal weight. What disgusting behavior from her. Talk to the medical board and put her on a timeout. Edit. I'm still furious on OP's behalf, and if anything, coming back to the post a day later hasn't moderated my original post. Rather, I'm more annoyed or worried. OP, those repeated digs about your weight are exactly the kind of toxic behavior that leads to disorder eating. She knows the risks, and she knows what she's doing to you. This is a choice. The only alternative to it being an active choice she is making is that she is the world's most incompetent eating disorder specialist doctor, which is more likely. I almost truly couldn't finish reading this because your mother-in-law is so absolutely delusional. And honestly, she is probably suffering from some sort of eating disorder in her own way. What she is saying is extremely unhealthy, and I'd hate to be one of her patients and being criticized for eating a cracker a day. You need to have an open and frank conversation with your husband about her behavior towards you and towards herself because it's vile. She needs help. What do you make of OP's mother-in-law? Up next, if you can't beat him, leave him. Mother-in-law has been super salty about my husband and I getting new cars and feels entitled to use my husband's for the weekend. Quick note for context, mother-in-law does not like me at all. So my husband, mother-in-law, and I have been living together for some time while we are finishing up college. We pay a good chunk of the bills, and my husband's ex-stepdad doesn't live here anymore but continues to give mother-in-law money to help her out. My husband has been trying to get a car for a very long time, but anytime he'd come close to it, she has demanded money or, I'm behind rent, despite us giving her a couple months worth of bills to stay ahead. And we end up having to pick it up. He finally was in a good place financially, and when he came home with a car, she was extremely rude and passive-aggressive, but that's a story for another day. And it got turned into a whole argument about me somehow. I've been able to land some remote work and save up money myself as my car has been broken down for some time. I got a car just this past week, and my partner and I are just really happy to have our own cars and not having to make our schedules around each other to use a shared car. She's currently using a friend's car after hers is broken down. Note, husband's stepdad is a mechanic and has been insisting on fixing her car, but she wanted to scrap it and continue using her friend's truck instead. All of a sudden, she has a serious sit down with my husband about how she's going to use his car to go out of town to visit family because she simply cannot use the truck. Am I reading too far into this? My husband said yes, of course, and I'm a little frustrated at how trusting he is of his mom after her terrible track record of taking care of her own cars. This weekend, she's using the car is the weekend of our anniversary and my birthday. So I was supposed to be out of town to see my family, but my husband has no other way of commuting now, so I'm more than likely going to have to stay behind. Update. Had a good talk about it with my partner. Long story short, he told her no, and that if he was able to after work, he would rather take her to the party than risk his car. I did wake up to some mysterious scratches all over my car and a crack in the windshield. I just like to watch has the first response. I think you have a husband problem. Doesn't sound like you guys are on the same page. You need to be a united front against her or she'll play you over and over. Empty Economist 7077 says, he can use her friend's truck to commute and you go with your plans? Yeah, nah, okay, sure, says. Sounds like she didn't even bother to ask and just told your dear husband what she planned on doing. That's pretty disrespectful. I wouldn't worry so much about her borrowing his car and more so on where her money for bills keeps going. How is this woman going to manage life on her own without her ex, dear husband, and you paying for things or lending her new cars? I don't know, that needs to be sorted out or it'll be a future guilt trip to deal with. Also, please don't cancel your plans. His mother certainly didn't cancel hers. The OP replies, yep, she said she expects that I'll drop my plans to take him to work because it's the responsible thing to do as a wife. Zoe Jax chimes in, no, you're not on our insurance. She'll likely break your car next. She's behind on money, has access to a mechanic. How long does she expect to borrow his car? It sounds like she's managed to manipulate everyone around her. I suggest that you and your partner find a place for just you, no matter how tight it might be financially. I think it's important to create space between the two of you now. I think your mom borrowing her son's car every now and again is totally normal, but she has ulterior motives behind her actions. I'm glad you spoke to your partner about her taking the car. He needs to know how you're feeling and work on advocating for the both of you. She needs a wake-up call. Give her one. These next in-laws need to take a good look inwards before they give any more advice. Just know mother-in-law and father-in-law pushing body norms to my toddlers. My in-laws really pushed me too far this weekend and hurt my feelings in the process. I'm at a loss. For context, I'm 6'3" and 23 weeks pregnant with my first son. It's been hard being this tall all my life in some ways, but it's who I am and I have grown to love myself. My husband is slightly shorter than me at 6'1". My in-laws bought my children, 4 and 3 years old, a cute decoration we can nail to the wall and measure their height over the years. My husband made a comment about how he hopes they reach 6'3" like me. Quickly, my in-laws start, no, your son can be this tall, but the girl should be more like 5'11". JustKnow father-in-law literally says if they're too tall, they'll never find a man. I am mortified. Not only did it really hurt my feelings, but there's a high likelihood my girls will be very tall like me. How dare JustKnow in-laws shame them for that before they even get a chance to grow? I tried to say, hi, I'm 6'3" and married to your son, but they just always talk over me. It put me in a sour mood for the rest of the day. They spent the rest of the day trying to tell me how to parent my child, trying to tell me how to talk to my own husband, and it just got pissier and pissier as the day went by. Dinner was the final blow. We were driving a third-row vehicle, and JustKnow mother-in-law says JustKnow father-in-law is too much of a man to fit in the back row. By this point, I was just pissed off and said, by that logic, I'm too much of a man too. Meanwhile, husband started to feel a bit sick yesterday, so didn't say a word the entire time. I'm supposed to leave my kids with them for a day next weekend, and I just don't want to anymore. I want to cancel the entire trip. I'm at such a loss and feel so humiliated, defeated, and don't even know where to begin with these people. CP Leg 68 has the first thought. Your hubby dropped the ball on this one big time. I'm sorry he's sick, but his mouth was still working. When they said that about your height, if your hubby wasn't going to stick up for you, you should have said to them that what they said was hurtful, inappropriate, insulting, and disrespectful. If they tried to talk over you, raise your voice and say, I'm speaking and I would appreciate it if you let me finish. Then the day would have been over if it was for me. And I would cancel having them watch the kids. And if they ask why, be honest. You don't want them saying anything negative to them about body issues, including height. It's bad enough they were so careless with your feelings, your kids don't need to go through that. And hubby should have a little chat with them and rip them a new one. I'm 5'10", and back in the day I wore 3 or 4 inch heels. One boyfriend was 5'8", and his mother said something like, I guess you shouldn't be wearing heels if you were dating my son. I looked her square in the eye and said, why? There was a pause of silence, and then I said, your son doesn't seem to mind? Can't fix stupid. Update, I saw a beautiful tall lady at the vet today and thought of you in this post. She was so stunning, a young gorgeous black woman, and she had to be 6'3". As I was leaving, I told her, I love your height, you are gorgeous, absolutely stunning. She laughed and said thank you. Then I said, I'm not hitting on you or anything, just thought I'd tell you how pretty you are. I'm straight, but if I wasn't, I'd be stalking this girl. Moral of the story, you are beautiful too, and your post touched me. Thanks for sharing. Grumpy Snarf chimes in. Sounds like it's time for your husband to let them know they are in a timeout and explain why. He needs to speak up. And why would you visit these people with your kids by yourself? Let your husband do it. I am so sorry, OP. Surely you must know that everything your in-laws said is totally untrue and absolutely ridiculous. They should be thrilled to be a part of your family's lives at all. It's none of their business how you raise your children, and they are in no way, shape, or form the kind of people that should be giving anyone advice. They sound like horribly judgy individuals who are hiding their own relationship issues by trying to put other people under their microscope. You should have a conversation with your husband to explain what they did was totally unacceptable, especially around your children. Your in-laws need to hear from the both of you that you won't tolerate these kinds of comments any longer. What do you think OP should do? Thank you for joining us today on rLounge. Before you go, be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell. If you have something you want to say regarding today's content, share that with us in the comments below. See you soon.